Welcome in to another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. Tonight is episode 204, 104. We're like 100 episodes behind that. Good golly. This is What Ifs and Big Questions. Tonight we're going to be talking about the biggest questions of your LA Kings tonight. What if this happens? What if that happens? All the hypotheticals, kind of maybe a little tinfoil hat-ish adjacent. But get in the chat, like and subscribe. You know what to do. Let's go. That new intro is brought to you by our own Russell Morgan, getting his hands and fingers dirty in the musical accoutrement that is hockey royalty. Boys, football season upon us, which means hockey season is following shortly after. I was telling you guys right before we got on that I might have had the best football weekend of my life. 8 for 8 in my fantasy football leagues, 4 for 4 in my parlays, and my Niners won. Can't really beat that. Can't top that. I'm never going to make another dime the rest of the season. So might as well enjoy it while it lasts. Russell Morgan, how was your weekend?
It was almost as good as that. Probably just even better. I mean, my Chargers beat the Chiefs for the first time in 4 years. I was losing my mind, sweating bullets, everything you can imagine. I just running around the house when Justin Herbert had that final run. And then my lone fantasy football team won. So, yeah, I guess I had a pretty good football weekend myself. And like you said, hockey's around the corner. I'm kind of pumped. Was able to get to the rink today, see the boys, the big boys on one rink, see the rookies on the other. I'm kind of excited, guys. I'm like ready to go now. It's like I feel like this break has been long enough. I'm ready to get back in the swing of things. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
My football weekend wasn't nearly as good. The Giants stink, so we can leave it at that. I go through this every single year where I'm like just kind of out of it, not into it, need a reset from hockey, like on the periphery. And then all of a sudden it just is bam. And I am like all in. Hasn't happened yet, but I think it's coming closer. And the news we'll talk about first is like that got my juices pumping a little bit this morning too. So we're getting there. Starting to see some pictures of guys on the ice and stuff going on. Like, okay, now we're really starting to get back in the swing of things here. So it's getting kind of exciting. Rando, how about you?
Doing good. Yeah, doing good. Work's going well. I'm just working a lot. Car industry, you're there 10, 12 hours a day. But, football's back. Every single person on the Niners is injured. So we're starting some college team that I've never heard of. But, hockey's back. I think based on the comments and kind of how the last episode went, it was a lot of truth. There was a lot more venting about the offseason. This episode, we're doing a lot of what ifs. What if this possibility happens? What if the biggest questions happen? I think tonight's going to get my juices flowing about the possibilities of his team because it's always nice to live grounded but have hopes and dreams about what could happen with your LA Kings. Before we get into that, though, in the possibilities, we already know something did happen. John Kelly has been announced as the official play-by-play announcer for your Los Angeles Kings. I don't watch much hockey outside of the Kings, so this is going to be all on YouTube. What do you feel about this signing or announcement? And as his style as a play caller, what do you think he brings to the telecast?
Yeah, I mean, when the reports were coming out that he was a name that was being considered, I mean, his name doesn't really jump out to me. I mean, I watch a ton of hockey, obviously, every other pretty much game that's on every night. So I kind of looked him up, and then as soon as I hear his voice, I'm like, oh, that's who he is. It's like you think of him and Darren Pang, they're constantly together. They've always been together on the Blues. And I'm like, and then we hear the news today. I'm like, hell yeah. Like, that's the kind of voice that the Kings maybe needed to kind of get into the seat here. And I don't know if he's necessarily like a long-term option because he is on the older edge. He was a St. Louis Blues guy for 20 years. So we heard about, you kind of look back at him being released over the summer, and Blues fans were pissed. Like, they were pissed that he got let go. I mean, your voice that you listened to for 20 years, that's a that's a big name to lose. And I actually saw an article where I think Joe Buck, who's a St. Louis Blues fan, went on ESPN radio one morning over the summer, and he talked about how disappointing it was and how it was like a huge mistake that the franchise was making. So now that the Kings are able to bring him in and fill that seat, that's a huge seat to fill, right? I mean, you're coming in. Bob Miller was obviously the guy for a while, and Alex Foss came in, and then Nick Nixon kind of filled the seat for a year. I mean, you get a name like that to fill a seat. I mean, kudos to the Kings. We talked about all the things that the Kings have done that we haven't really agreed with as much, but this was one that I am very happy with, and I think they made a great decision here.
Yeah, this is for sure the move of the offseason so far. I love this guy. He's one of my favorite play-by-play guys. He was awesome back in his days with the Avalanche too. I remember he used to call them way back. I think it was back in the 90s, maybe late 2000s. He was so good. And I remember as soon as the Blues made that decision, I was stunned. And like wishful thinking, I'm like, that'd be awesome if the Kings could get this guy. But you don't expect anything. I don't know, and I didn't know what his plans were or anything like that. So this is awesome, and he brings like a little bit of an energy. He's still has like a little bit of an old school cadence to his call, and he brings some energy. Like I don't know. I mean, he did it in Colorado. It was a big thing in St. Louis, but like there's moments where you'll just hear him do his thank you, thank you, thank you, the 3 thank yous. Like this dude's awesome. He's a great guy, great play-by-play guy. Different energy than the likes of like a Bob Miller and Nick Nixon, but I think this is awesome. I think Kings fans are going to really enjoy him. This is awesome. It's really exciting. I'm fired up to listen to Kings games now. Watch Kings games. That's not that I wasn't before. Grew up listening to Nick Nixon, so perfectly. That's fine. But I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I was actually getting messages from like fans of other teams saying like they can't wait to listen to King or watch Kings games now because of John Kelly being in the building. I mean, yeah, it's like it's tough. Like I feel like play-by-play announcing, there's only so many good ones I feel like in the league, and it's like hard to find like that unique blend of like excitement and like genuine like instincts on like play calling the game and whatnot. And I feel like John Kelly does that, and I think they had a great kind of relationship with him and Darren Pang. I thought they were great. Darren, it's be like every call you hear is like John Kelly going crazy and Darren Pang going, "Holy jumping!" It's like every Blues call. But he was so good in terms of bringing that excitement. I mean, Doc Emrick was kind of the similar way. I think some people view Doc Emrick maybe going a little bit over the top, but I loved it. I loved hearing that kind of action. And when he was with NBC all those years, and I think John Kelly kind of brings that kind of vibe too. So I'm excited. I think, like Joe said, this might have been the signing of the offseason for the Kings here.
I'm excited now that you guys got me pumped up to watch some games. I was super disappointed with Alex Faust leaving. I thought he could have been a long-time play caller with how young he was for the organization. And then it was kind of just, Nixon. I didn't grow up listening to him, so it really wasn't a nostalgia thing for me. So I've been waiting for the next guy. And, maybe this is the Ken Holland signing of announcers where it's just a short-term fix and they're still looking. I know, I'm losing his name right now, but the announcer for the Reign, maybe they're grooming him.
Josh Schaefer.
Yeah, Schaefer. Yeah, maybe they're grooming him to get him more, because last year he did a couple calls for the Kings. Maybe he gets a little bit more run this year with a few more games, and they're grooming him for the future. But to have a legend in the booth for your LA Kings to make the games more exciting and watchable and just got to get you pumped up for everything. Now you guys got me pumped up, so I'm ready to watch some Kings hockey. And
I think Josh does a good job. Like I've listened to him, with the Reign. He does a good job. He did a really good job with the Kings when he came in. And if the Kings decided, we're gonna have it be Josh Schaefer here going forward, like I wouldn't have been upset about that. I think he does a really nice job. But it's just like I said, go just go listen to some of John Kelly's calls on YouTube if you can find some thank yous in there. Like it's exciting. So hopefully that excitement kind of carries over to LA. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I think the broadcast team as a whole, I think they did a great job with the announcement today. I mean, you're able to kind of keep Josh Schaefer around. He'll be doing the radio broadcast. They're not doing that stupid simulcast thing anymore. They're able to separate radio and TV now. And then you have now potentially Tony Granato and Ray Ferraro coming and filling in as analysts here and there for Jim Fox, which I'm a big Ray Ferraro guy. Love Ray Ferraro. Tony Granato, I don't know. I've heard too much. I know he does some studio work here and there. I haven't heard much of him on TV calling games, but very knowledgeable names, obviously, that know the game of hockey. So I think the Kings did a great job here with the entire broadcast team and bringing back Carlin Baith and Patrick O'Neill, Jared Stahl. Obviously, they do a great job on the pre-games and post-games and whatnot. So, yeah, I think the Kings, like, TV-wise and watching the games, the production's going to be outstanding.
Granato, if I recall, is a little bit more, obviously, really sharp guy, good to listen to. Not a ton of like energy, a bit more. I don't want to say mellow. I think that makes him sound boring. He's not boring, but contrasting him to Ray Ferraro, who's very direct, very blunt, very honest. Ray Ferraro is the best in the game in terms of color, in my opinion. Color commentary, I don't think there's anybody better than Ray Ferraro. So that's to get him calling some Kings games too. They've already got a good color guy as is with Jim Fox. So now mixing in Ray Ferraro here and there, that's incredible. So yeah, great job by the Kings here with the announcement today. That's for sure.
I mean, not Ray Ferraro on Chell.
I don't even know. Probably.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't play.
Maybe. But not to mention Blake, I want to mention Blake Bolden too, because she does a great job with the ringside stuff. So I mean, and these are all national. They're all national TV people.
Yep.
Obviously, Ferraro, Granato's appeared on the TNT shows every once in a while. Bolden does the Amazon stuff up in Canada, and so I mean, hats off to the Kings. This is a home run here.
Yeah.
Because I know Carlin Blythe is on the Chell game. I thought Ray Ferraro was on it as well, but I haven't played in a long time, so maybe I'm wrong with that. But either way, he does a great job at all the international games. Didn't he called the World Juniors as well for a lot of those games? So he does
Gordon
a great
Miller
job.
did it for a while.
Him and Gordon.
Right?
They got to be one of the best duos that's out there. I mean, they do the World Juniors, Rando, and they're incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mike Johnson, I think, fills in for now, and I'm a big Mike Johnson fan.
Yep, he's good too.
Great job.
See, fans, when the Kings finally do something right, we give them praise for it. So let's get going. Speaking of doing something right, it seems like the Minnesota Wild is doing something right with the contract offer, and that's what we're going to get going in here with our episode of Coast to Coast, talking about the rest of the league. And right now, the biggest news around the NHL is the presumed offer of 8 years, 128 quatludes for Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild, making it the most lucrative contract in NHL history by a long shot. Recent news today I've seen is that the team and the agent or people close to the agent saying that there's never been talks of a contract that lucrative. So who knows? It's already rumor season, and we haven't even started a puck drop yet. But holy smokes with this offer here. 8 by 128. If that is true, Kirill's going to be a rich man. What do you guys think?
Man, like when I heard that, I think Saravalli put out that tweet that he had turned down that deal for $16 million per year, 8 years. Like my initial thought was like, obviously, wow, like that's an unreal. Because I would have thought that's something like McDavid would be getting. Not to think Kirill Kaprizov would get that, but then that you see that he turned that down. I'm thinking like, man, if I'm the Wild, like, what can you do here? Because I think what he wants, I'm sure, is he wants like a short-term deal. Because like obviously with the salary cap going up and up and up, and it's going to keep going up for the next few years. Like if I'm a superstar like Kirill Kaprizov, I'm probably not going to be looking to get tied down for 8 years. I'm probably going to sign a deal for like 4 or 5, maybe even 3, and just say like, hey, I know I'm going to be good for like a long time. So why tie myself down to 16 mil when maybe in like 4 years from now I could probably get 20 mil. So I'm sure he's trying to be like, I need to just go short term and there's work from there. And the Wild are like, no, we need to think about like long term and try to tie you down, because obviously he's a great player. He's probably one of the 10 best players in the NHL. Like I think the Athletic actually had their tier list come out, and I think he was on that list of like top 10. So he deserves the money probably. But like if you're the Wild at this point, I don't know what you do, because if you're not able to get a player like that signed and he's a free agent next year, like they might be in big trouble if he ends up walking and he doesn't re-sign with them. come next summer.
I feel like this is a little more, I think, than a difference in years. Like, I feel like if it was, hey, we really just don't want a long-term deal, we want a short-term deal, they would have come to something and it wouldn't have gone public like this.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly has the vibes that he doesn't want to stay in Minnesota, whether it's for 2 years, 3 years, or 8 years. So that's what it seems like right now. Because again, I think if it was a short-term deal, the Wild, maybe they try to do the long-term thing for as long as they can. But if they're dead set, then they're not gonna. I can't imagine they let it go and get like this to this point where now it's public. They would have got a deal done. So, good Lord! And there was I don't know. There was a report today. Russ, Randy, I don't know if you saw that was he asked, and maybe this is unconfirmed, to like give a list of teams to potentially.
Yeah, there was I'm gonna find it right now. There was a journalist, a name I hadn't really heard of, but it went
Russian,
around.
I think.
Yeah, Alexei Shevchenko. I'm probably butchering it, but he said that the Minnesota Wild asked Kaprizov for his trade list, and I think there were reports there that
which you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been reports that they refute the even offer, but I mean, Bill Guerin didn't want to comment on it, so it certainly seems like what Joe's saying here. It's kind of trending in that direction here.
And good Lord, talk about this guy hitting the trade market, whether it's be it now or as we get into the season here. I can't.
Here it comes.
I can't imagine, like, if Bill Guerin and the Wild are already answering questions here in September as camp's opening. If this is a situation where he wants out, that's, first of all, that's just a tough spot for them. But I can't imagine they're going to want to let this go through an entire season. They have to deal him. And now it's like, well, where does he go? There's 31 teams that would be interested in this guy. Obviously, only however many are realistic in terms of cap and roster construction. Then you got to figure how many would he actually accept to. So that gets pretty small pretty quick. But boy, oh boy, that really is an interesting name that I wouldn't mind seeing out of the Western Conference if he's going to get traded, right?
I mean, yeah, it's like, I feel, obviously, if you're a Wild fan, you're absolutely pissed because, like, you would have wanted to know this probably like before the draft, like to know that this is going to be a possibility, and we're like a couple weeks away from the season starting. That's a hard thing to facilitate, and especially with all this news, like teams are going to know, like, hey, you're kind of up against the ropes here. Maybe we might be able to shortchange you or whatever. But I mean, even with all that being said, like Kaprizov you're going to have to be trading like your number one prospect, like multiple first round picks, like you're an elite NHL player, like if. Like,
well, let's talk about that. That's why I put this bad boy on.
Like, obviously, right? We're a Kings podcast. We got to talk about like if there's a fit here. And as much as I would love to see 97, whether it be McDavid or Kaprizov in LA, I don't know. Like, it'd be like Byfield and Clark to start.
Fiala, Green Tree, and a 1 or 2 1s?
No, not enough. Not enough.
Kempe, Green Tree, and 2 1s?
Nah, I mean, you're getting there, but even, I don't know. Like, I think it's Byfield and Clark to start, to be honest with you. You're talking about like a legitimate top player in the NHL who was offered the most lucrative contract ever. So,
but I don't think the Wild want to rebuild. Like, I know Byfield's not a rebuilding player, but Clark is kind of viewed that way. So why not get Fiala or Kempe instead?
True. I mean, if they were able to re-sign Kempe, who knows if even Kempe wants to sign there, though. That's another thing, too. So they're looking for, like as much as it'd be great to see him in LA, I don't see how that would work, to be honest with you. Like, I would love it. I just, like, the Kings would be in such bad shape, just even trading Byfield. It's like, okay, well, now you kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. You have a great winger, but now your center depth is messed up. Or even trade Brant Clark, who's supposed to be your next right shot defenseman. Now what are you going to do once Doughty's gone? Like, I understand like how good of a player and the caliber of Kaprizov you're getting, but it's like the Kings don't really have the kind of trade assets to make that deal happen. So Yeah, this like Kezinch says in the chat here, it's like we don't need him. We just get McDavid in free agency next year. So we do that. I mean, the teams that I think about, like I'm looking at like San Jose, like Anaheim, like these teams that like have the draft quality or the draft assets and the prospects and maybe some talented already established players, and that can make and maybe need that superstar talent to take the next
What about
step.
Montreal?
I think that's another name. I mean, you're probably gonna have to get rid of like a Caulfield, but I mean, you team him up with Demidov. I mean, I'm sure they'd love that up in Montreal.
Or, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like a team like that that's kind of young-ish on the up.
But do you think Kaprizov wants to leave?
But
they're not winning. Why would he want to go to a losing team? Like, I think it would have to be.
Well, but I
think
it's direct. Well, so first of all, we don't know, right, what his maybe motives are. But in terms of to your question, Brandon, about teams and stuff, like Minnesota has been in the mushy middle for how long now?
He's like, I actually want to compete. Like, I want to be a team that actually competes.
And I think, and again, in that example of Montreal, if you were to ask me, like Montreal, I think is slowly building something a little bit there. I actually, I think they overachieved last year, but they're kind of slowly creeping. You add a guy like a Kaprizov, that could really change somebody's fortunes a little bit. But like it's again, Minnesota, and this is where, in talking back to LA, like I see LA and Minnesota. Like LA is the Minnesota that we've seen for the last decade, 15 years. Like, yeah, they'll make playoffs like every year, and they'll never be a threat. That's just how like players in that situation. It's like if you can see that now, unless you just love where you live and you love it, the whole family setup is perfect for you. Shoot, by all means, do you. But if not, yeah, I'd probably get out of Minnesota too.
Yeah, Ren in the chat asks, or he says, turning down 8x16 is so crazy, though. What kind of contract do you sign him to? And that's kind of where we all point to. Maybe it's just he doesn't want to be in Minnesota. Like, I mean, to be the highest paid player, like nobody expects Kaprizov to be that. This is what I expected McDavid to sign for.
Right.
So
right.
to hear that he's turning down this offer, I think that's why everybody's kind of surprised and taken it back here. It's like, whoa, if he's not accepting that, like something else is going on. And he probably just doesn't want to stay. And that's why these conversations are starting to come up. And yeah, I think like he makes the Minnesota Wild what they are. Like they were like one of the best teams in the league when he was healthy and playing last year. And there were talks that he was the Hart Trophy candidate for a while because he was playing so well and just how good he makes them. So it's like if you're trading for a player like Kaprizov, like Montreal, like you're taking Montreal for maybe that. Like maybe playoff contender to like, oh, now all of a sudden they're like a top, like maybe an Eastern Conference like contender up there. Like maybe not now, but when you have young players to surround him with and Demidov, Slafkovsky, you got Noah Dobson there now, and you got Hudson. Like, okay, now we're talking there. And I would think like that. Now I think about like Montreal would be a great fit because I think Minnesota, you're able to trade away like an young American talented player in Cole Caulfield and kind of mix him with Matt Boldy. Now you have some established talent we have some chemistry, right? Going back to their World Junior days. That might be an easier pill to swallow. He obviously scores a lot. So maybe they are a trade partner and you trade him away for an Eastern Conference team. You never have to face as much. So
it's so hard because it's all speculation as to like what teams he'd accept the trade to. And like what these teams would have to give up. Because again, we're talking about trading Byfield and Clark and Caulfield. Like this leverage starts to get pretty low when you're only working with a couple teams. Like the cost may not be like it'll be significant from a trade aspect, but it may not be the big time players that you would think. Who knows? Like it just depends, I guess, and what Minnesota wants to do from a direction standpoint, which is kind of crazy because they just recently got out of the crap of Suter and Parise's like the dead money, and so like they can kind of move forward a little bit. And they got some nice players there. Don't get me wrong, but like he's what makes them a contender. I don't even put that word. I don't think they're a cup contender or anything like that. I mean, it's fascinating, and I hope he goes east because I don't know. Like, obviously
He's
they're
a
going to have
Kings
to
killer.
do and they're going to have to do what he wants basically, because he's in a lot of control with the no move clause, and so we'll see. I don't know, but like I would imagine teams like Montreal, I never count the Rangers out of stuff like this if they can figure out like I mean, there's a big Russian contingency in New York, so I can definitely see the Rangers being involved somehow here. But it's hard to say. It's just totally shooting from the hip here because you don't know how many teams and all that stuff. So it's a hell of a name to be on the market here in September.
Florida find some way to do it, right? Like 8 by 1 million with 185 million deferred over 46
How's Vegas
years.
getting them? How's Vegas getting them?
Exactly. I mean, man, like he's got to be the biggest name. Like if he does it, the trademark, he's got to be the biggest name since Kachuk. Like probably even bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean Kachuk, I feel yes. I mean, right? Like
the trade rumors, yeah.
Yeah, because Eichel was before that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's big.
It's funny you brought up they finally got out of that Suter Parisi money. Oh, we got money to spend. Here you go. And it's like, nah, I don't want it. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was Jay Fresh that posted like, man, if Kaprizov leaves the Wild, they're gonna have to have an expansion draft for that team because I mean they have some talented pieces there like Eriksson Ek, obviously Matt Boldy. I'm a fan of Marco Rossi, like Brock Faber, Zeev Boyum, but I mean, like without Kaprizov there, that's like you're like like with that mushy middle, like once again, probably even less so.
Unless so maybe because Randon was like, well, they're not going to want to rebuild. Maybe they do. Maybe they use this piece to rack up a couple firsts, an elite prospect, and maybe a young NHL player. Maybe that move. Not to say it's going to work out. I mean, Kaprizov's it's probably not going to be better, but maybe they use that piece to kind of stockpile some things. I don't know. I mean, I would not want to be Bill Guerin right now.
And then you can trade Eriksson Ek to the Kings next year. There we go. And fill that center spot that we might be missing. I mean,
so back to the Kings, Fiala and so Fiala, Clark, Green Tree in a 1. Does that get it done?
I mean,
you got to move some money. You got to move some money out to make that work.
If you're Minnesota, and he's not signing here, and you get a package of Fiala, Clark, Green Tree, and a first, I'd say that's pretty enticing.
That's pretty good. But I don't know. It's interesting to think about, but
then can you imagine that line? Kaprizov, Byfield, and Kempe?
That's I feel like that type of trade just doesn't happen. Like it usually ends up being a first or two firsts, a prospect, and like one NHL player. Like I don't know. I feel like it never ends up being.
Kachuk was.
Fiala just came from Minnesota. Yeah.
Kachuk was Huberdeau, Uyghur, and like a first.
That's a good point.
So there was some mistake. I mean, but then I think it's like you have to learn from that because the Flames shouldn't have. They needed more like future assets than opposed to like. I mean, they're great players that they got, obviously, but like I'm kind of with you. Like if I'm the Wild, like and you're not able to re-sign Kaprizov, like you're probably looking like at like a quick like retool or whatever. Not necessarily like sell everybody.
Yeah.
Like you have like most of the players are pretty young. Like Rossi's young, Boldy's pretty young. Faber's pretty young too. I mean, Zeev Boyum's going to come in the league as play his first full year. So you got names like Brodin, I think, is maybe on the older end. You can probably trade him for something. Eriksson Ek. Like, yeah, I think that's something maybe you look for like more like elite level, like blue chip prospects and maybe like a couple firsts and say, okay, let's do that. So I just like, that's where I'm like, I just don't know. Like if I'm like, that's why if they Kings would call, they'd probably ask for Byfield like right away. Like that would be the name they'd ask for. And I don't think LA should be doing anything like that.
Like I don't think do you think this is crazy? This may be crazy and it's not meaning to be crazy, but like would Minnesota say, okay, we're going to lose this guy. We'll take Byfield. in a straight up, or maybe there's some ancillary pieces, because Byfield is young center under contract, and Kings are getting a star. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying I would do it or Minnesota would do it. Maybe LA's going to add a first to that, right? Like that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's the exact kind of trade I'm talking about, like a elite level, like young talent that you were coming in to fill. That I mean, yeah, it's like it sucks because like I'm sure Bill Guerin's tripping out because like he doesn't hold that much leverage here. Like he's up against it because like it certainly seems like, I mean, GMs are probably calling his phone saying like, "Hey, we'll offer you a 5th round pick. Like, what do you got here?"
What kind of helps him though is what does help him though is the team that has to acquire him has to sign him. So like they're going to have to move a significant amount of money somehow. So like, I look at a team like Montreal, like, do they move on from Slafkovsky? He's signed long-term 7.6. They could open up some money with him. Now, obviously, 7.6 is half of what Kaprizov could get paid.
But you don't need to pay him
something like that.
That
young, true.
Right, you have a year to figure it out.
The young, under control player, high-end type of upside, like just again, this is all just spitballing here because this is crazy for a guy like this to be, because and maybe he's not actually on the trade market. Him not saying not turning down this deal doesn't automatically mean Minnesota's going to look to trade him. They got all year to figure this out, right? I mean,
but that's the thing though. It's like, how can you wait? Like, how can you go this year? Because like I think we're all in agreement. Like the Wild aren't considered cup contenders. Like
we think that, but like,
look, Kirill could drag them to playoff series win or 2 wins,
and like look at the Kings. They've got Adrian Kempe right now. Now, obviously, he hasn't reportedly turned down the biggest contract in NHL history. So I know the scenarios are a little bit different, but like hypothetically, you have 2 teams, not contenders. Like, at one point to the Kings, are we then saying, well, Kempe hasn't signed, when are we going to trade Kempe?
I mean, Kempe and Kirill are the same age. So does Kempe and our new, whatever his name is, for our first round pick from this year in a 1 get it done? And to say, hey, like, let's just switch winger stars?
Well, that's the thing though. It's because the players get to decide. I mean, I think Joe made a good point there. It's like Kaprizov it's not necessarily like it's Kaprizov that kind of holds the leverage here because he's the one who's going to have to choose. Like, I mean, teams that are going to trade for him are going to want to know, like, hey, you're going to sign here, right? And there's probably going to be an extension tied to the trade in order for that to happen, because they're not going to trade like elite level prospects or like talent to trade for a player that's only going to be there for 1 year. I mean, maybe like there could be like a big, like maybe they hold him till the trade deadline and say, okay, let's just get something out of him for like a rental. And teams are more willing to do that. But even then, that's like a huge risk. I mean, maybe like I would say like Edmonton would probably do something like that. Like that's like a team you're looking for, like a legitimate contender who maybe just can't get over that hump, is willing to trade like some decent assets just to say like, hey, he's just going to be here for 1 year. We're going to use him, then we'll see what happens after that. But like if you're like a legitimate team who's in trade talks here, you're probably going to want to know that Kaprizov's going to sign for you guys long term, because otherwise you're just going to be like, all right, we're going to hang up.
All right, let's prediction. Where's Kaprizov end up?
Minnesota.
Okay.
He stays.
Do you think he signs?
It's just so hard to do these types of deals. Like the sign and trades with that much money and like and the pieces in return. Like if he ends up anywhere else, I think Russ is right. It's at the trade deadline. Like Minnesota Wild maybe are not in it, or something else is going on, and they're just like, we got to get something for him. Like I don't know. Like most of these times, these players don't go anywhere.
He's going to be a Ranger. He's going to be a Ranger.
No. Yeah, maybe.
They'll swap out Alex Lafreniere for him.
That's decent. I could see that happening.
He's not even the same level. I mean, the Sharks have the most young pieces if Minnesota wanted to rebuild.
But if you're San
are the
Jose,
Sharks?
don't you want to keep doing what you're doing because you're not like a Kaprizov away from anything?
Yeah. And like that's the thing is like we could talk about like what teams have like maybe the best assets, but I'm thinking like in my head like okay, where do we think he would want to go? And I think the Rangers make a ton of sense because obviously with the Russian contingent there, and it seems like a lot of Russian players love to play there. They might be able to facilitate a trade. Like I mean, Lafreniere, Brandon, I agree. I don't think he's on that obviously level of player that he's at, but
he's not,
like you could sell Wild fans like, hey, number 1 overall pick. Like you bring him in with like a first and maybe some like, I mean, they got other talented young players there.
Do you think
like,
the Penguins get desperate trying to make Crosby's last couple of years?
No, I don't think so. Like I've
be awesome.
actually asked this today. Like, do you think Sidney Crosby is going to get traded? And I'm starting to think that might happen.
I still gonna say no, but like there's talk of, speaking of Montreal, there was some Sidney Crosby to Montreal buzz at some point. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. How about that? I don't think that.
Like I went. Yeah, I was actually talking to Eddie Garcia from Locked On Kings today at the rink, and he asked me to put a percentage, or I told him like a percentage. I'd say like 10% he gets traded.
Crosby.
Yeah, and I think it's like. I think the fans of Pittsburgh, as much as they would want him to play his entire career with the Penguins, like they're not like making this like Washington Capitals resurgence season. I mean, I don't think. I mean, even with like Carlson and Letang and even all those players, like they're still going to probably be around the bottom of the East. So it's like at that point, I think fans would kind of realize and feel like, okay, like we understand, like we want to see Crosby win, and I think it'd be in the best interest of the fans and the team to kind of get the most out of they can out of Sidney Crosby, and probably that's him being traded somewhere. I mean, because could you imagine Montreal trading for Sidney Crosby? Like they would give up everything for him. So, yeah.
A Nylander for Toronto. They've been wanting him out. Yeah, Nylander for
or Crosby.
Kaprizov. They've been wanting Nylander out of there for a while, or at least fans do.
You know what's weird is fans. I don't get it, but like Toronto fans like hated Mitch Marner, but loved Willie Nylander. Like, and they couldn't be the two like completely opposite players. Whereas Mitch Marner, like I get it, he kind of has some like diva aspects, maybe some prima donna aspects to him, and
Prince
some
of the Royal Douchery.
Yes, something like he had a comment where he's like, "Some people look at us as gods around here," which like, okay, like we get it, dude. But like, you watch Nylander play, and he's dogging it out there on certain shifts. It's like Mitch Marner actually kind of gives an F like every once in a while. But like for whatever reason, Toronto fans freaking love Nylander, but they hate it, and they're willing to kick Mitch Marner out the door. Like it's strange, but I don't know. I don't think that gets it done, or it might get it done. I just don't know if Toronto would do it.
Crazy.
It's a wonderful time to be alive. It's a wonderful time to bet on some NFL football with our friends here at DraftKings. Football is back, and it's your big shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick6, the official fantasy daily partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you some real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, from breakout rookies to elite quarterbacks, and unlock the upside every snap that brings you the better calls for better payouts. Now I'm here sitting here looking at, I did Pick6 last weekend. I'm doing it again this weekend. I'm sitting here looking at, so where can I get the nice upside here? Rookie running back Henderson going for over under 37.5 rushing yards. You know, maybe click the over. Maybe he breaks one in. They call him take it to the house Hendy for a reason. Maybe you like a quarterback to throw for more than 214 passing yards in McCarthy versus Atlanta. Now, odds are subject to change. These lines change daily. So get in there early, get those lines, so that way you get the perfect parlay. Now, if there's here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus bets with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your player instincts. Download DraftKings Pick6 app now. Use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5 and get 50 in Pick6 bonus bets. Make the call. Ride the upside in your partnership with DraftKings Pick6. The crown can be yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccbg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. Only one per customer. Bonus bets awarded in non-withdrawable Pick6 bonus picks that expire at least 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.com/DraftKings/promos.
One team real quick. One team I thought of that might work for Kaprizov, the Blue Jackets. Maybe you put together a trade of like Kent Johnson. They have that Denton Michachuk defenseman. So you got, I think he's a lefty too. So you can maybe pair him up with Boehm and Faber. And then they got like a pretty heavy Russian contingent there with Voronkov and Marchenko. They definitely have some money. So just something to think about.
Yeah.
I wish this happened earlier in the summer. Like this would be like the news all summer. Like now it's like right at the cusp.
Well, news around Kingsdom is before we get into the what ifs, talking about contracts. Little interview with Adrian Kempe, still not signed. Seems like he's not interested, or not interested. Is unperturbed that the contract hasn't got done. He said it'll get done whenever it gets done, whether it's before the season or at the winter break. I know we were talking about the panic meter last podcast. Did the interview give you any more or any less panic? What's your kind of gut feeling now after a couple weeks from our last spot?
I'm still very low. Like he hasn't given any indication that he wants to leave. If anything, he's given more indication he loves LA and wants to stay here long term. So, I mean, like I said, I kind of in the same boat that I was when we last talked. Like, unless this like gets to like the end of the year or something, maybe after the Olympic break or trade deadline, then I'll probably start to get a little nervous. But I feel like this gets done at some point.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. The interview didn't really change anything for me. I mean, I think he kind of kept it pretty neutral in terms of his comments, which, all these guys do. I mean, for the longest time, I thought Gavrikov was a shoo-in to re-sign. I mean, there wasn't like any clear indication that he never hinted at that he was going to be out or wanted out or anything like that. So, I still think he signs. But yeah, like Russ, I probably don't start to get really nervous until, maybe after Christmas break or after the turn of the year or something like that. Then maybe it starts to sweat a little bit. But for now, the interview didn't change anything. Didn't really change my panic. I'm pretty low right now. I still think Kempe is okay. I think he'll sign.
He didn't give like a McDavid type interview, so that's good. I don't know if you heard what McDavid said. He's like, I could sign for long term, short term, or no term. Like, I'm sure Oilers fans will love hearing that. So I think Kempe is saying, I guess some of the right things. It's just contract negotiations, I'm sure.
Well, tonight's episode is called What Ifs and Big Questions, and where we're going to be breaking down our biggest questions with the team. Us three kept all of our questions kind of hidden. We're going to be going off the cuff here with us, getting the raw reactions with the other co-hosts. So it's going to be what ifs, big questions with the team. Who wants to start?
Gremlins are attacking Randon, I think. Was that right?
I don't know. I was hearing a lot of feedback there. There we go.
Yeah. There we go.
So, all right. So who wants to start with their big what if? I guess I'll start. I'll start. If nobody wants to go, I'll go. I've been a big fan of this guy since he, came out of the womb. The Clark train is where I'm going here. What if the Kings actually, give him 18 plus minutes a night and some power play time? What does the season look like for the Kings? What does what does his season look like, Joe?
I think if he gets the minutes and the power play time that we expected, then my bold prediction of last year of him getting 40 assists will come true. And I think we could see, him approach 50 points from the blue line, which would be really exciting. I think it gets a little we're all curious to see what is, whose partner is going to end up being. I suspect it's going to be Edmondson. So, I don't know how much that's going to play into it. I certainly hope I'd like to see some Dumoulin with him. I think Dumoulin's just a little bit more competent with the puck, so I wouldn't mind seeing that pairing. But I think for him personally, we could see that breakout 50 plus point season from an LA defenseman if he gets those minutes. And that's obviously the bull case, right? If he actually has progressed and put in the work this offseason, has made the improvements that he needs to work on to take his game to the next level, to be a little bit more consistent, be somebody that's trusted to earn those minutes in all those situations. But I definitely think we could see a Clark breakout if he does get those minutes, Brandon.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I tell people though, like if you had to ask me like who plays more minutes, CC or Clark, I'm still going to say Cody CC just because of the way who's coaching, and they're not going to give Clark penalty kill minutes. He's most likely going to be on the second power play unit, so we'll see what happens there. But if he is playing 18 plus minutes a night, I mean, then something's going right, and the management is starting to back up some of the things they're saying. Maybe Jim Hiller's had to change the attitude as far as how he's approaching deploying Clark. So yeah, I would love if that were to happen, because it definitely feels like he deserves it. I mean, Jordan Spence was more or less the second kind of hybrid third right shot defenseman for most of the year, and he got 17 minutes a night and still performed really well, even though he wasn't really getting those like late like high pressure minutes or whatnot. So if Clark's able to get those minutes and they fully trust him, then yeah, like we're okay. Now we're starting to see something. Maybe Cody CC is that third pair that they said they signed him for.
Yeah, I think this is the big one here, and for me at least with this team, and if we're talking about a round one win for this team and progressing in the playoffs, that progressing comes with young players taking that next step. And we thought that was going to happen last season with Clark, and I thought he did take the next step. I thought he was excellent at the beginning of the year. The coaches thought otherwise with how his deployment. But if he's getting 18 plus minutes a night and getting some power play time, that means the coaches trust him in the deployment that they're offering him or that he's earned. And I think Clark's going to rise to the occasion. He's never not been good at every level of his career. And the only downside so far with the Kings has been his deployment or ice time. And so if he's getting that, which is the what if he's getting 18 minutes a night, I think he's easily a 50 to 60 point defenseman. I think you're looking at a more dynamic team. I think with the right bumper down low as Kuzmenko, whether he's on the first or second power play unit, Clark is going to get 10, 15 points, if not more, from the power play to kind of boost the 3-on-3 or the 5-on-5. I mean, so I think he might set the record for most points by a defenseman since I've been watching the Kings. If he's getting 18 plus minutes a night, that's just his high pinnacle offensive upside. And I think once he's given that opportunity, he's not going to let go. And that'll be 18 minutes a night. That'll be 19 minutes a night, 20 minutes a night, 21 minutes a night. And if he starts the season getting 18 plus minutes, the middle of the season will get a little bit more. And then potentially you could see him being RD1 by the end of the year. If that's where the management sees him at the beginning of the year and gives them that amount of minutes, and the reason they let go of Spence was to trust Brant Clark more and give him those minutes right off the bat, I think you could possibly see him as RD1 at the end of the season, averaging more power play time than Doughty. Maybe not more total minutes because I think they trust Doughty defensively a whole lot more, but the almost the crowning or the passing of the torch will be apparent this year more than any other year with Clark.
Well, so we could probably do this with all of our kind of, what ifs, if you will. But like, what if we flip this on his head, and what if it goes the other way, Brandon? Like, what is the scenario from an?
We weren't being wet blankets tonight, Joe.
Mine were positive for the record, but as you were going through that and you were going through the positive case, like, what if Clark though doesn't get? Because we all assume. I shouldn't speak for you, Brandon. I know Russ and I assume he's not going to get those minutes because of who the coach is. The biggest question has been his deployment, and the guy that's been deploying him is still there. So I'm a little like, what happens to Clark, like from a player progression future standpoint, but also like the Kings as a whole, as a team, as a defensive unit, if Clark is kind of maybe he starts off playing 18, and then for whatever reason, this could be Clark's fault too. Maybe Clark doesn't perform to expectations and he slips down to the third pair. So what could we see happen? What happens to the Kings blue line at that point? And where's Clark? Where does Clark fit at that point? Because speaking of some interviews and comments, there's some, and I don't know if this was a direct quote, but and I forget exactly where it came from, Russ, if you know, but Holland had said that he was going to take his time with Clark in terms of, I think he was asked about a possible extension, because I think he's an RFA after this year, and which I think in normal, whatever, not a huge deal. It's fine to take your time, I guess. I think the only thing that maybe gives some, at least Kings fans like me, some pause is Clark isn't a pro. So I don't know if this is something that Holland sees a future for Clark or what. So at what point does that become a little bit of a concern if those minutes dip for whatever reason? And you've got a GM who's certainly not saying, yeah, we're going to look to get him locked up. He's a key part of our future type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the concern here, because I mean, we know how much of a vocal guy and how much he just loves to talk and whatnot. A very confident player Brian Clark is. As much as we want to consider maybe Clark to be that RD1, I mean, as long as Drew Doughty's here, nobody else is going to be RD1. He's going to be the RD1. But I'm sure he sees and what we all see too, you're giving a guy in Cody Ceci who we just saw play top pair minutes in Dallas, even though we all thought it was a bad decision. And now they signed him here for 4 years. I mean, Brian Clark knows who the coach is. Brian Clark probably sees the writing on the wall and hears all the comments and sees the rumors that Kevin Weeks put out last year and trade rumors and whatnot. I mean, he's an RFA at the end of the year. If he's not getting the minutes and not playing more minutes than Cody Ceci of all people, it's what are you doing to the player? How much confidence is he going to have in the team having confidence in him? And that's kind of where the concern is here.
I fully expect him to ask for a trade at that point.
I wouldn't blame him, because he certainly seems like that kind of borderline cocky player where he wants to play. I mean, he wants to play all the time. He's made it known, and he's also made it known that he's willing to do whatever it takes. It's just, for whatever reason, the team isn't giving him that opportunity. And yeah, I get it. Last year was really his first full year, and maybe we're jumping the gun here, but I mean, we all saw what happened this offseason. We see that the way they're able to deploy their defensemen, how they deploy the defensemen in the playoffs, what's going to change there? So,
right.
It's, yeah.
All right, boys. Who wants to step up next?
Well, mine was kind of in relation to Clark, is about Drew Doughty. He's coming off obviously a really significant injury. He's getting up there in age. I think there's certainly a faction of folks that are starting to kind of write him off, if you will, in terms of he's at the tail end of his career. But what if Drew Doughty returns to what he was just a couple of years ago, pre-injury? Because after that, he had a couple really rough years there, but he's had a couple of really nice bounce back seasons, was an incredibly important part of the Kings blue line, a key factor. He was able to log those minutes and log them effectively. He did everything he could to get back as soon as possible last year, and you could tell he was a shell of himself as a player. But what if Drew Doughty returns as RD1, returns as the Drew Doughty we've seen before? Does that change perhaps some of the outlook? Do we think that could that elevate them? Do we think this is a team that can get out of the first round? Can they make a run in the playoffs if they have the Drew Doughty back? He's healthy. He's playing 25, 26 minutes a night, but it's an effective 25, 26 minutes a night.
I mean, that would certainly give me more confidence, because obviously he's the player that's going to be what we all expect to play 24, 25 minutes a night. So if you're getting that level of Drew Doughty that we saw, I mean, what was it, just a few years ago, that he was he was one of the best defensemen. I mean, you looked at some of the numbers that him and Mikey Anderson were putting together, that defensive pair was outstanding. And it just got to the playoffs where they just couldn't put it together. So, but if he's able to get healthy and be that Drew Doughty, I mean, I don't know if that necessarily changes my outlook as a team in the playoffs. I mean, as much as we talk about the playoffs and the outlook, I think a lot of it is tied to do I think this team can beat Edmonton? And that's kind of where I always point to. They're we're just going to talk about that until we see something otherwise, see another matchup. I mean, I've said, like, I think they have a chance to beat like any other team, maybe Vegas. I mean, we give them room for money, Colorado, Dallas, but like any other matchup, like we'll see what happens there. But if they get a healthy Drew Doughty and he's able to play like really elite, like top 10 defenseman type minutes for the Kings, like I've said even now, like with Gavrikov gone, I'm not necessarily as concerned about the defense with Dumoulin coming in. Like I watched him today and I was like, oh wow, he moves it. He's got very quick feet. He moves well for a big guy. Not to say like Gavrikov was slow at all, but I think that kind of transfer isn't like isn't like a drop off that we'll see as notably on the ice. So yeah, I think if they're able to get Drew Doughty back to form, that's huge for this team.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if Drew Doughty comes back to form, I think not only does it help the defense as a whole, it helps the offense. Because right now your only puck moving defenseman is Clark. And Dumoulin can do a little bit of that, has a good first pass, but the rest of the defense is defensive minded. So like
Lashing out.
And so you're looking at if Doughty can be both, not only play a lot of minutes a night, which is good for the defense of the team, it sticks with our identity, but it allows a little bit more offensive play. And then you can have multiple shifts in the zone, right? If he comes off and you get Clark to come on, like it looked like last year, the way they wanted to deploy Clark was giving him more offensive shifts and get him in transition is where he kind of shine. And so if they're already pinning somebody in the zone and you get Clark to come on the next shift after, and you can kind of string together some shifts, then maybe you have a defensive core that is not just a bunch of traffic cones out there. Like you have some more fluid movement and you can run two pairs that have a little bit more offensive capabilities than just having depend on one guy and Brant Clark to have all the pizzazz for that blue line.
And I think it's probably needed because if he struggles, Doughty, or if he's not healthy or it takes him a while to get back up to speed, we've just talked about how, we're not really sure that what the reins are going to be on Brant Clark. And so we could have a nightmare scenario where Cody Cece's getting 1D minutes if Doughty like has an injury or something like that. So, the Kings need him to get back to Drew Doughty form, I think, for them to really have a shot at making an impact this year. And I'm bullish on that, by the way. I think Doughty, if anybody's going to come back from that after now having an off season full of rest and recovery, like I think Doughty's going to be fine.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I'll do mine. I have one that's kind of doomer, I guess. So I'll just get it out of the way now.
Good.
They can't all be great, but the first 11, I guess. All right, let me reframe this. 8 of the first 11 games that the Kings play are on the road. What if they have a bad start to the season? Let's say like they have that kind of Edmonton Oilers start a few years ago that changes needed to be made. Like, what if the Kings kind of have that start to the season? Do you see some kind of changes happening if that does happen? And like maybe we get to, because everyone points to American Thanksgiving. If you're not in a playoff spot, more or less, you're probably not going to make the playoffs at that point. So let's say like we get to the American Thanksgiving, they're not in a playoff spot. Do you see the team actually making some change?
So hot take, I actually think like I'll have to look. Like I would put money on Jim Hiller, first coach, fired. And that's not to say that I think it's likely, but in the scenario you just laid out, his GM made the team worse. And so he would almost he's shown his kind of flaws in how he wants to play. Now, I've said that the Kings are a much better regular season team than a playoff team because I think the style that they play allows them to be very competitive over the course of 82 games. But if you go up against an actual top team that can scout you for a 7-game series, they run into a lot of problems. And obviously we've seen that. So, and it wasn't Holland's guy. And it may not, and that might be pretty unfair to Jim Hiller just because, as I mentioned, the personnel that was brought in by Ken Holland and he might have kneecapped his coach, although I'm sure these are players that Jim Hiller likes as well. So whatever. But yeah, I think that could be something. That is very doom, Russ. That's for sure. To be clear, like I don't expect necessarily that. I don't expect Jim Hiller to be, but like if I were a betting man, I think that's a scenario that this is a situation where you got a team that's made the playoffs 4 years in a row. They bring in a new GM. They get off to a skidded start. Ken Holland's not here for a long time. He made that clear. He wants to make playoffs. So a bad start, yeah, I think you're going to see a new coach.
Would you possibly see a trade at that point? Do you think the Kings go into a reload, like a 1 year reload, if they're?
I don't think they can, Randon. They just committed too many years to just mediocre players that like you can't. There's no wiggle room now, right?
Yeah,
like,
you'd see a coaching change before like a big trade. I feel like. I mean, where's the, like we've talked about this. Where's the trade? What's going to happen? I mean, you trade Trevor Moore. Like we like Trevor Moore. Like what are you getting there? Like you're going to get like Kaprizov for Trevor Moore. Like that's probably not going to happen. So like how much more are you actually upgrading at that position? And so yeah, I mean that's kind of why I bring up this possibility because yeah, you look at the schedule for the Kings. It's very road heavy at the beginning of the year. That's not easy for a team just kind of getting their feet wet with two new defensemen that we're expecting to probably play top 4 minutes. Like that's a hard thing to overcome. And especially when you consider that, like Joe said, that you have the new GM who everybody said he's brought in to win now. And everything that happened in the playoffs last year with Jim Hiller, I think if things get off to a slow start, we could see those changes happening.
I mean, you have plenty of players that could get moved if you want to do a reload. Look how many UFAs we have. We have Kopitar UFA, Kempe UFA, Kuzmenko UFA, Cody Perry UFA. You have an RFA and Hellenius, but you have Brant Clark. I mean, there's plenty of guys that could get moved. I mean, you really only have Doughty for 2 more years. If they wanted to do a rebuild or a reload because they felt like this was not the team to get it done, I mean, you want to go doom and gloom. I mean,
I think that's like more
Holland fired.
That's
the coach fired.
That would be like an off-season feel like that's like a next off-season kind of thing because it's like if they like miss the playoffs altogether and it's like okay, like I don't know, like that's where I feel like okay, like there might have to be something bigger happening here.
Well, if they're not in the playoff hunt by I think American Thanksgiving, chances are they won't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean,
true. Can I do my next one? It's a little bit better.
Sure,
it's a little bit happier.
You just want to go back to back, all right?
Everyone's Russell now, so he's the wet
I don't
blanket.
Be like total doomer here, but let's get a little happier. What if Quentin Byfield does happen to be that elite number 1 center that we all expect him to be? Does this team like now all of a sudden take that next step to where okay, we have that legit number 1 center, we can finally compete with the Edmonton Oilers or the Vegas Golden Knights? Does that jump in Quentin Byfield's game make the team those next level and put him in the realm of like Colorado, Edmonton, and Dallas?
I had that same one on my list, Russ.
There we go.
So I'm glad you threw it out there. And I'm going back and forth on this. I mean, I still don't think it gets them past a Colorado.
Russ, what's your version of elite? Let's throw that out there.
Sure.
What's your version of elite?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Like you could say like point per game player. I mean, that's what maybe like 90 plus point player. But like a guy who's able to be like I see him as like a guy who's able to be on the ice with Connor McDavid and win those matchups.
Yeah,
like let's just say that.
Okay, so that's what because I was gonna say is he elite in the Kopitar mold where it's not always points, but he's just so good 200 feet, or is he more offense, whatever? Obviously, I think he's got to be able these days. He's got to be able to put up, point a game to 90 points, and he certainly can skate with McDavid, right? I think that's like the optimistic case there is if he can skate with McDavid. I shouldn't say that. He's the closest thing the Kings probably have from a center standpoint that can actually skate with McDavid, like speed wise. So I don't know. I think that I don't think it changes much for me in terms of like where I think they go. I still don't know if it's good enough to get him over Edmonton or over, again, those top teams. But it's certainly, I'm way more interested in that. And like, I think that's much more likely at that point.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I think that'd be great for like at least a long-term view of this team, because obviously with
That's for sure.
because with Kopitar leaving most likely after this year, then if you're able to see that jump out of Quentin Byfield, then it's like, okay, maybe that gives Kings fans a little bit more confidence in like saying like, okay, like we may be losing Kopitar here and we don't really know like who's going to be 2C, and maybe it's Dano, maybe it's Turcotte, whoever, but at least you're getting like Quentin Byfield to be like a legitimate like top center.
Yeah, so long term, that's a need. Like that has to happen, Russ. Like whether that happens this year would be nice. That has to happen because the biggest among the issues that I've got with the Kings is they don't have a 1C, they don't have a 1D. That's a big issue. Like true NHL caliber, cup caliber 1C, 1D, they don't have right now. So if Byfield can emerge as that, massive. It makes them much more of a threat.
Yeah, I just want to bring up, I'm actually looking at the stats from last year's playoff series and looking at some Quentin Byfield's opposition stats. He played 34 minutes against Connor McDavid, and he outscored him 4-2. The expected goals he was only at 42% share. So expected goals weren't great, but he was obviously outscoring him, and he was being outshot a little bit. And he won the matchups against, or they tied the matchups with Draisaitl's 2-2 with the expected goal share at like 30%. So
it's much hard. As probably,
like as much as like he was probably giving up those chances, which like obviously that's bound to happen. Any team's going to give up chances against those players. But if you're at least able to put a couple in on the other side and take advantage of your chances, which I think that was kind of what we all hoped would happen last year. If you're able to do that, then okay, at least you're making progress here.
Does that make us a little more nervous, guys, that Byfield outscored McDavid in his minutes and they still couldn't get? Now I know they didn't match. They weren't like they didn't get the most minutes against him, but I think the reason I would feel much better about this, Russ, if it weren't for the blue line, right? I that's still my biggest weak link on the team. So, but hey, if you have a elite 1C, he can drag you, right? He can drag you through even if you've got some deficiencies. And he can maybe win a playoff series for you. So that becomes in play if he evolves as that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the topics I thought about bringing in and as well, because I think that's just the biggest question mark. Highest drafted player in the Kings in a long time. Design to be great. Everybody said it was going to be a slow burn. But when does a slow burn take off into, a fire? It's, the kindling has been set. The match has been made. It's been dropped on the fire. Like we need some ignition here. And I know we see little tidbits of sparks here and there, but when do we get a full-fledged fire of Quentin Byfield where night in and night out, he is dominating on the ice, where he's a factor, where he's a guy that we can depend on? You're talking about a point per game player. I mean, like, have the Kings had a offensive weapon where every night you can practically depend on him being a factor? Like, it's been a long time since that has happened. And I think him playing, not only he's probably playing with Kempe and Fiala, the line that we want to see. That's probably the line that you're seeing with if Byfield's playing to that level. I just think that you're looking at a team that then can compete. You're talking about with 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left, and you need a goal. Like, you have a line that you're like, okay, yeah, this line could put a puck in the net, and then it vindicates the pick in general, because the pick at that time, I think Kings fans were probably 50-50, right? With him and
Stützle
and Stützle. Yeah. So, and so far Stützle has had a much better career points wise than Byfield. Ottawa really hasn't done much in the form of a team, but as far as an offensive player, and that's really what fans see is the offense. Quentin Byfield has kind of been lacking there. So is that uptick? Not only does that vindicate the pick, because then he probably gets then the face of the franchise going forward. He probably gets a letter at that point. You would assume they sign Kempe to a deal because he's playing with Kempe the whole year. That maybe be north of 10 million if you're talking about a point per game player in Byfield, and then that means he's playing with Kempe. Kempe's probably having close to that the same amount of season. So, and if Byfield's a point per game player, does that kind of hint towards the power play being good and a little bit more offensive style play from the LA Kings? Is that possible with the blue line? Probably not, but maybe the power play is more consistent all year long where Byfield can get those kind of points in the special teams. So I think it points to a lot of good things if we see that from QB.
Yeah, it needs to happen because at this point it's not a debate between Stützle and Byfield. Like I know that was a big thing for a while. That's not even close right now. So it needs to happen. I think it will. I said last summer I was excited and I thought it was going to happen, and it did. It started in February. So if we could start this in October, then we're in business.
Yeah. I think with those three together now, at least with Fiala and Byfield together, that they've had some chemistry. I think we'll hope to see because I think Fiala had a slow start. So once those two kind of got together, we started seeing both of them blossom together. So I would hope like now that they kind of have this lineup pretty much set. I mean, this is the first time in a long time I can remember where we're going in. There's probably not a lot of surprises that are going to happen out of training camp. You're probably looking at. You probably already know what lineup's going to be. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, well, maybe if you can have that continuity come over and kind of carry over that production you had toward the end of the regular season last year, hopefully you can build off that a little bit and find some more production out of it.
All right. Well, mine was taken because I was going to do a Byfield one, but let's go with another young prospect that we all like. What if Turcotte has a fully healthy season?
Please.
What does that do for him as a player, and what does he bring to the Kings at that point? Right now, he's probably slated in a competition for 4C with Samuel Hellenius. But if Turcotte's fully healthy and is allowed to play his type of game, what does that mean for the LA Kings? What does that mean for his career and the type of season that we might be able to see from him?
I think he could potentially be, like a Blake Lizotte that has some more offense to his game. I think that's not meant to be a slight. Like Blake Lizotte when he was in LA was an outstanding fourth line player, created offense, was a puck hound, won a ton of battles despite being not a big guy. If Turcotte can be that motor and create some offense on the fourth line, that's huge. It lengthens the lineup, gives them potential for some offense deep into the lineup. And a flexible player who can play the wing. He's got the skill and the brains to play up and down the lineup if he needs to. There's still a I think a quality NHL player there. Maybe not a consistent top six forward, but somebody who has the skill to do so, can probably play special teams. Like he could be like an important kind of Swiss Army knife for a team, for the Kings, if he can stay healthy, because he can do a lot of different things, cover a lot of different ground, and especially he's an important player to have if guys go down with injuries or miss time, because he can play everywhere. So I still really like this player, and I hope that Turcotte can have a healthy season.
Yeah, I think out of like a lot of the things that I just talked about with the kind of continuity with the lineup kind of carrying over, the fourth line is the only one that's really gotten the change coming into the season with the two new players in Perry and Armia. And I feel like that's the biggest unknown, at least in the forward group. And now that you're surrounding Turcotte, I mean, we saw Turcotte playing with Kopitar and Kempe, and even there were flashes. Those two were great together, and a lot of it was because of Turcotte. And now that you're getting Alex Turcotte, some like I would say more established players, obviously in Corey Perry and Yoel Armia, not necessarily like they're going to break the bank in terms of production 5-on-5, but I mean, they know what they're doing out there on the ice. You're not putting him with like a Andre Lee or whatever, not to put anything against them, but like we're talking about Corey Perry and Yoel Armia here. Like these are players that are going to be able to carry Turcotte where it's not like he has to carry a line himself. So, I mean, you see Turcotte, like you watch him play, and like there's a player there. And I think if anything, like that would give me confidence to say, like, okay, let's say Kopitar does leave after this year. If you're seeing that jump from Alex Turcotte this year where he's fully healthy all year and he's being productive with Armia and Perry, then it'd be like, okay, like maybe you can bump Deneau up and put Turcotte up, and you have a 4C in Hellenius, or maybe even you have a 2C in Alex Turcotte, and you say, okay, now we got some skill here that we can use. So I don't know if that player is necessarily there in Turcotte, but I've certainly seen the flashes, and I'm not gonna count him out from being it. So I'm excited to see what the Kings are able to get out of the fourth line.
I think this year not that there was pressure. I think there was pressure on him last year to get healthy and make the roster, because that was that pinnacle. And I think him flashing the way he did kind of afforded him a little bit of runway. And so I think he has the inside track to being the 4C this year. So if he shows up to camp and he's healthy, I think all year long, yeah, you're playing with offensive players that are veterans. You're not carrying along rookies or they're not all fighting through it together, right? I mean, Corey Perry, this is his 80th year in the NHL, and like there's no question marks. Like you said, Russ, with Andre Lee or a lot of these other rookies or young players playing in or having an all young line, as much as we want to see it and have all the prospects kind of come up together and play that together, I really think that if he's healthy and you have a lot of these older guys that are just veterans that know what to do, and it can kind of just be a solid fourth line. It's the chippiness, because Alex Turcotte kind of plays with a little chip, and obviously Corey Perry's on that line. They're all, you have two guys that are sound defensively. You have some offensive flair here and there. Turcotte is available to facilitate for the good shot that Corey Perry has. Like, there's a lot of different dynamics to that fourth line. And then if he gets healthy, like you're maybe the rest of the roster isn't healthy. So maybe he pokes up to that 3C or 2C or plays on the wing and is able to facilitate the team in different ways than just being a fourth line player. And then you feel a lot more comfortable about him on the roster. Like you said, Russ, going into next season, it's not a dark spot, because if Kopitar's gone and Turcotte has a bad year and Byfield is just what we saw last year, this team has a lot more holes than people realize. And this team isn't in a contender next year at all. Maybe not even a playoff team if all those bad things coincide. So like a healthy Turcotte and a consistent player that he is, you get a lot more confidence for this year and in the future as well.
I'm shocked Johnny Utah is all in on Hellenius, by the way. Love it, Johnny. I think he's a good player. And I would just say too, you mentioned the fourth line, the guys he's playing with. Perry obviously knows what he's doing. He's still got a hockey brain, still so smart. He's going to know where to go in front of the net. Don't sleep on Jolomira's shot. He's got a sneaky shot. When he came up, he was a pretty good prospect in Buffalo when he was coming up as like an offensive player. Obviously, he's carved out a role for himself as an effective kind of fourth line penalty killer type of guy. Don't sleep on Armia's shot, though. He can shoot it. And so having a guy like Turcotte who can create with him, with Perry going to the net, there's potential there.
Well, so I've done two. Joe, you've done your two, right?
Yeah,
and
no, I have. Russ did the QB.
Oh, that's right. You said you thought about doing that. So what's your second of the night? Let's round us out.
This won't come as a surprise. I mean, I'm a hashtag goalies guy. Like Darcy Kemper was a Vezina candidate last year. 920 save percentage, was one of the best goalies in the league last year. And what happens if he's not? What happens because goalies are goalies, if he falls back to like even a 910 is still really good, frankly. But what if he does fall to like a 905, 910 save percentage, or he's been somebody that even last year battled a little bit of injury? What if we see some injury? What happens basically if Darcy Kemper, for whatever reasons, just because regression says he ain't going to be a 920 goalie next year again, or he misses some time due to some injury? What does that mean for the Kings as a whole? Do they have the goaltending to, if it's a missed time thing, do they have enough in Forsberg, etc., to kind of carry the load, kind of going forward. And, Darcy Kemper played 50 games last year. Do we think he can do that again? Do we expect him to play 50 games this year?
Yeah, and I think that's why the Forsberg signing is such a under the radar good signing by Holland, because Rittich there were times he just couldn't get the job done if he wasn't playing San Jose, then he was getting pretty much lit up every night. So Forsberg, and not to say Forsberg is an elite level goalie, but if you're able to make a save that you should be making and maybe have just a positive goal save above expected, or even just above 900 save percentage, that seems to be a pretty good benchmark in the NHL these days. Mm-hmm. So for me, you look at Forsberg's games played stats: 30 last year, 30 the year before, 28 the year before that, and 46 the year before that. So he's always obviously been a backup, but if you're able to maybe get 35 out of him this year, maybe even close to 40, and kind of bring Kemper back a little bit, because we talk about all the time how much the Kings defense and the forwards coming back all the time, how much that helps goaltending. Darcy Kemper was a finalist last year, even after a bad year in Washington. Cam Talbot was an all-star the year before that after a bad year in Ottawa. Now you have Anton Forsberg come in, who doesn't necessarily have these eye-popping numbers, but he seems to be a pretty, consistent goaltender and kind of a reliable one. So if you have that in Forsberg, who you're paying pretty decent money, I forget what his contract is, but it's not league minimum I think Rittich was. If you're getting that out of Forsberg, I would say give him 35, 40 minutes or 40 games this year and try to keep Kemper as healthy as you can be, because there's a lot of back-to-backs on the schedule. So I would expect, obviously, Forsberg to get most of those, if not all of those, first or second legs of those back-to-backs, and then maybe sprinkle in some, especially with the heavy road start that the Kings have to the season. So they're going to lean on Forsberg a lot. And I don't know if this really would be because of whatever Kemper's performance is, but I think more or less whatever Kemper is performing, I think he's obviously still going to be the 1A or the starter, yeah. I guess, be the number one, but they should still lean on Forsberg to be that player that they can lean on for 35, 40 games this year.
Yeah, I think you've already really touched on all the points there. I think the only thing with the injury bug, maybe the positivity, would give the Kings a peek into the future in between the net. Portillo is trying to get healthy, so who knows what we have in him, but he is the oldest and seasoned of the young goalies that are now flooding our pipeline. So maybe you get some eyes on some of the young talent and see how that can work out. I think the team is built to help whatever goal is in there. So I think you're right. Yeah. I think if Forsberg has to play more games, then great. Because they have the defensive team to do that. I fully expect not a down year, but a lower stat year from Kemper, just because he was just playing such at an elite level. And,
yeah, exactly.
And so, regression is just a statistical possibility at that point. But I think the Kings are still going to be in there. Regardless of where Kemper sits. I think Kemper, though, when it comes to the playoffs, is going to have to steal some games for the Kings to win any series. I think that's just inevitable at that point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, too, somebody brought up a good point about how, just Rittich really struggled last year. I think he had an 886 save percentage. And so, if Kemper comes back to a 9, like I said, 910 is really good these days, Yeah, exactly. So even going from 920 to 910 or 907, that's still very good. And if you can get 900 from Forsberg as opposed to the 886 from Rittich, then you're still fine. So yeah, I agree. I'm not worried about the Kings goaltending at all. I am not expecting a Vezina candidate season from Kemper again. Who knows? He's certainly talented enough to do so. But I think I do like the Forsberg signing. It was 2.25, Russ, for 2 years.
Okay.
Per. So yeah, I think the goaltending is going to be okay, in large part because, they kind of insulate themselves. Although, hey, they also have brought in defensemen that spend way more time in their own zone than the offensive zone. So I don't know if that's going to end up being something that we see over the course of the season. Like the Kings have been a pretty dominant, good to great to dominant at times, expected goal team, Corsi shot share type of team. So I do wonder now that when you've got, if they've really just kind of put a number on that by you've had Edmondson, now you bring in CC and Dumoulin, and I'm just curious to see how that all works itself out. And if we see them, because if they're a more middle of the pack team and kind of like expected goals and shot share, then we get a little nervous, I think, because that could become a big problem, because if they're only middle of the pack, that means their chances are they're giving up quite a bit more, and that's putting a bit more pressure on the goaltenders. So we'll see how that kind of plays itself out. Obviously that the system is kind of insulated a lot of that in recent years. So we'll see. That'll be interesting to kind of follow throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, even with all that, we talked about that, but I mean, Kempe was 6th in goal save above expected last year at 5-5. So it's not like to say like he wasn't a great goalie, but I mean, these are hard numbers to replicate. Like I think that's what we're all kind of saying, or what you're kind of alluding to too.
Yeah. Number one, was he not number one in high danger save percentage?
I believe so. I don't have that up. I'm looking at
or at least for I think for Clearside Analytics, he was number one in like.
Yeah, I remember that being the case for like a long time. But
yeah,
I also thought Randon made a good point too with Portillo, because it's like we're all really high on what Carter George and Hampton Sakinski might be. And I mean, even if one of them pans out, that's great. Like, awesome. Both of them are more than likely going to be on the Reign next year. So you have Portillo, who's this not to say he isn't maybe that high level of prospect that those players are, but I mean, he's already played. Maybe wasn't like even though he put up good numbers, I thought he was still kind of jumpy in that game against Anaheim. If there is an injury, maybe that's the kind of bright, like that bittersweet, like bright side here, because you're able to get maybe a taste out of Portillo to kind of see what you're getting out of him, or can get out of him if he does need to play a game or two. So I don't know if it's that, like, it would be bad. Obviously, we don't want anyone to get hurt, especially Kemper and how great he was and maybe can be. But it's kind of a little bit something to you can lean back on if it does have to happen.
Or they just sign Slavkinski and he takes his reign of winning all these championships to the LA Kings.
He ends college, then starts in the playoffs. There you go. I like it.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of big what ifs, a lot of big questions going for the Kings this season. Appreciate you guys for joining us on this chat. Please like and subscribe on your way out. All of our articles at hockeyroyalty.com. Please find us on X or Twitter, wherever you guys prefer. And this will be a fun season. We're glad to get back. Football's here. Watch a little Thursday night football tonight. Green Bay Packers just won if you're watching us live. So check your fantasy scores and your parlays to see if you guys came away with any bit more money with our sponsor here at DraftKings. But, boys, a lot of what ifs, a lot of big questions. Only time will tell how they get answered. Thank you guys in the chat. Appreciate you all. And as always, on this stream, go Kings go.